Hello, class. This is Professor Tweed here, which would probably be my last video of this semester for residential construction. And we actually been doing all our work up to this point in AutoCAD, but today we're going to have 1 week in Sketchup. We'll talk more about Sketchup in class. This is going to be basically just how to get the assignment done and the important things to do that. But I'm a big fan of Sketchup. It has a lot of uses, and we can talk about other various things like that in class time. But here we go. I've got SketchUp already opened up on the screen. This is the default settings that I think will open up on your computer screens. You'll notice we've also handed you directions on this. And the directions were done with the previous version of SketchUp. This latest version of SketchUp looks a little bit differently. You'll notice on the instructions there's more sort of these icons. And the way that the different tools that we show later on are a little bit different. A lot of it comes down to this, that this whole, it's called the default tray, holds a lot of the tools and things you can use now rather than sort of floating across the screen. So all of these can be accessed a little bit differently than what the directions say. A lot of times the directions say go to Windows and pull up something. What you have to do is go to Windows and go to default tray, and then that would be where a lot of these things are hidden. That might be in your instructions, but most of them should be open on your screen over here already anyway. But I do want to start off with saying that. The other thing I'll say is I think I probably have had a little bit more, maybe a lot more experience in SketchUp than previous instructor who wrote these instructions. So I'm going to change the directions a little bit, and I might even add a little bit to the end. Because I don't believe necessarily that the instructions are really providing you with all the best practices that you should be using to model. So with that, what we're going to do is SketchUp always opens. This is our drawing field, right? We'll go over that in class. And this is our axis. It's like X, Y, and Z is the blue. And SketchUp always has this funny little person in there. It changes per version, just gives you a scale figure, and that's just an object in here. So I'm going to go to my black arrow, click on this person, and hit delete. Get a blank drawing screen. And then the instructions say to set up a couple of, go through a couple steps is to sort of change the basic settings before modeling. So I'll follow through with what they said. And the first one is to go over to your styles, which should be over here. And again, if you don't see styles, it could be collapsed. If it's collapsed with the arrow pointing to the right, you just hit it and it'll open up. If you don't see styles at all in this list, either scroll down over here, because there's some hidden, because I have so many open currently, or go to Windows, Default Tray, and hit Styles, making sure it's checked. Once you find styles, what you want to do, as you hover over these, you see a little name pops up in that yellow tanny box there. What you want to do is find the one that's shaded with texture. This is the one that your final output's going to want to be. It's going to change the look of a lot of features. One of the great things about SketchUp is that there's lots of different ways of quickly making the rendering look different. This is basically the most default setting. Now you notice on my screen right now, if I just sort of use my mouse and pan around with my scroll wheel, it has a gray field in this. So it looks like a ground and it looks like a sky. And if you're new to 3D modeling, keeping this setting until the very end, until you print, might be helpful. So you might want to do this step at the very end. But I'm going to do it now just to show you what happens. What happens is it goes away. It's now just all white. So I sort of lose the sense of three-dimensionality at this point in time until I start drawing something. So that's the first change. And then the other changes we're going to make is we're going to be putting some notes on this drawing, which the reality is I don't know anyone in the profession who uses pure SketchUp for notes, not very often anyway, not in this fashion. There's many other ways of doing it that I think most people prefer, but since the directions have this, and really it's also about residential construction, can you identify these pieces? It's worth putting them in there. So we want to make sure that the text looks great. So we're going to go into Windows, we're going to go to Model Info, and I can start with dimensions, and I want to click this black box here. Well, notice it actually looks black, but it's actually just a gray tone. I'm just going to pull this bar all the way down and say OK. And I'm going to hit Fonts and change it to Bold 14 and say OK. Then over in this column, I'm going to go to where it says Text. I'm going to do the same thing for both of these. I'm going to hit the black thing, make sure the bar's all the way to the bottom, hit Fonts, make sure it's bold and 14, and say OK. I'm going to do this box as well, hit this black one, pull this down, say OK, hit Fonts, hit Bold, hit 14, and say OK. And now I can close this. So when I'm ready to do notes, that'll sort of all be set up and ready to go. And that is, although we won't be doing notes right at the first step, that certainly is, it's getting it set up now. It's in the first in the directions. That's why I'm mentioning it now. Now, one thing the directions talks about is layers. I am not going to have you do layers like this. This is not a good way to do layers in SketchUp. Layers do work a lot like AutoCAD's, as the instruction implies, but we haven't really taught you things in this class about blocks in AutoCAD. And so I'll just simply say you should. We're going to be using groups in SketchUp, and groups are a lot like blocks, so you should follow the rules of blocks. Now, we haven't taught you what that means, so I'm not going to go into the detail, but what that does mean, I'm going to tell you now, is you always make a block on layer 0, and in SketchUp, most all of the time, you always make all your objects groups, and you want your groups to be on layer 0, so we are going to work on layer 0. There's reasons for that. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but highly recommended that all your drawing generally is on layer 0. Now, I'm going to make an exception for this, which is we have 2 drawings at the end of this that we're going to have to make, which are has notes. Two views are going to want to have notes. And they're going to want different notes. So I'm going to make text 1 is going to be for my first group of notes. I'm going to make another layer and call it text 2 for my second group. And then I can toggle these on and off, because generally in many ways they work very similar to AutoCAD. But this is all I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to go, and what we're drawing is a little wall detail. Let's see, I should have, where did I put the 5? Anyway, so I've pulled up the assignment here to see the file, what we're doing here, and this is what we're drawing. It's basically, this is a footing, this is a concrete wall foundation, here are some joists and the stud going up. And when I was talking about notes, just like in all the assignments, if I scroll through, we have notes that we need to put on here. These are the 13 notes that will be here, and we can see this. You're going to have different views, and I'll get to that later in the video. But this view has this many notes here in dimensions, and then you're going to do another view on the other side of the wall that has this many notes, and then there's actually the instructions say to do 2 other views without notes. So I need layers to do that. Everything else, layer 0, but that's what we're going to be drawing. And I am going to start with this foundation here. So I'm going to minimize this back and go to SketchUp here, and I'm going to start with the foundation. And the foundation is 2 foot wide, so I'm going to start 2 feet wide. And you can see that's I can zoom way in by pushing up on my scroll wheel to see this little line here. These little green dots, by the way, they're sort of the object snaps of SketchUp. And I'm going to come back. Now, the directions don't say how big to make your model, so I'm just going to sort of eyeball it up for now and put it to about here on my screen. Draw a line, click a line. I'm going to come over here and type in another 2 feet. I just typed in 2 in the foot mark and enter to get that. And I'm going to pull back around. And when I close an object, we see it automatically makes a face. That means it's a closed object, which is good, because to 3D model then in SketchUp, you use your push-pull tool, which is right here. And I'm going to click on it. You can click on any face and pull up or down. And I'm going to pull up here, and this footing depth is 1 foot. So I'm going to type in 1 foot, enter. And that's the basic segment of my wall section here. The way that you should generally work is everything in SketchUp should be called something a group. And that's because SketchUp is sort of sticky in many ways, and so putting things in groups, it sort of compartmentalizes them, makes them easier to move around and model going forward. And the way you make a group is pretty simple. We're going to go to the black arrow tool. I'm going to triple click on this to select the entire face. It's just 1, 2, 3, left click. I could also just draw a box like this. Either way, we can see it selected with the blue dots and everything like that. And I'm going to right click and say make group. And we can see it's still selected. Those dots went away because I can't push pull this thing now. So it won't let me do that. And the reason is it's inside the group, it's protected, and that's important when modeling. Now I still have to edit this guy because I still have to put the little keyhole in it. And I still can edit it. I just have to double click on the group. Now I've entered the group, and when I get more groups in here, I'd only be able to enter what I've sort of is inside that black dotted rectangle here. So it protects this object from other objects for modeling. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another rectangle on this face, which is the keyhole, and then pull it all the way through. And I can sort of move it around too. The reality is I can draw it here, and it's going to be 1.5 inches because it's a 2x4, so it's going to be 1.5 by 3.5 inches. I'm just drawing the rectangle. And 3D modeling is all about doing, it's sort of strategy. It's drawing it in segments, how you know, and things like that. So I'm going to carefully select that line. I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard and select all 4 of my lines of that rectangle. All right, and I'm going to move it from my midpoint, which is that cyan-colored, blue-colored dot, and I'm going to move it to the midpoint of this guy so I see the same blue dot. I just moved it into place. I could have drawn it into place if I used half numbers and things like that, but that's the way I did it. I'm going to just go back to my push-pull tool here, and I'm going to click on that little rectangle, and I'm going to push it all the way through. And there we go. We've sort of made the foundation wall. So now this foundation piece is finished, and I can click outside to go back out to draw my next object. If I didn't click out, if I didn't disappear that black dotted line, I would be drawing in that group. And I want my concrete wall, which is the next piece I'm going to do, to be in a different group. So the concrete wall is 10 inches. And I'm going to start by drawing on this face, I think. How might be the best way? I think I might just draw here from the center point. So I know it's got to be aligned in the center. So it's 10 inches, so the width is going to be 5 inches. Now, it doesn't say how high up this wall is going. Clearly it's not a full basement height, so I'm just going to sort of visually do it to what looks about right on the paper, say something like that. Then I'm going to come over 10 inches this way, and then I'm going to come down. Oops, I messed up that 10 inches. What you want to do is when you're drawing, see how I get this red snap line. My line looks red here, it looks black there, and it looks green if I move it this way. That's your axis, and that's why you want to make sure you're drawing along those. And so since I'm trying to draw along the face of this footing, I need it along the red axis. So I'm going to type in 10, enter. That's what I didn't do last time. And then when I come down, because I'm drawing down, I want it along the blue axis, and I want it to come all the way down and come all the way across. So when I draw that, you can see it finishes the object and fills it all in. Of course, I don't need this little rectangle. I don't need that little rectangle because I only need what's sort of inside here. So I'm going to draw a line here to here. That sort of separates that face. And draw a line here to here, separate that face. And I can go to my black arrow and click on this line and hit delete, and the face disappears because it's not closed, and hit delete, and there we go. And I sort of made the shape of my concrete wall. Now I can just pull this into place. So the way this is drawn is that the back edge is all the way to my back edge. So I'm going to push it through to here. But to make it look somewhat sort of three-dimensional, I'm going to then go back to this front face and just push it in, you know, maybe about a quarter of the way through the footing. So it looks like this. And I'm going to say, well, maybe it looks like my wall should be a little higher, and I can still do that. I can push this up. All right. So if I didn't put this guy in the group, constructing this would have been more difficult. But anyway, I'm going to triple click on this guy to select it all. I'm going to right click and make him a group because he's finished. And I'll sort of move up. The next thing will be this plate here, which I'm assuming, let's see if I look at note 4 is a 2x6, but let me just make sure. So I don't want to steer you guys wrong. Note 4, pressure treated 2x6. Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to make that its own group, and I can draw again, right? In this, I can draw 2x6 is 5.5 inches over. It's 1.5 inches up, and it's 5.5 inches over. And it comes down, and push-pull this all the way to the back, and push-pull the front back just a tiny little bit. And I'm going to select it all, triple-clicking, right-clicking, and make it a group. Alternatively, I could draw the plan of all of this out if I wanted to and push-pull up the other way. That also would work. There's many different ways of solving this problem. And it looks like there's this little bolt here. Let me see what note 3 says here. 3/4 inch diameter, yeah, anchor bolt with washer. And I think there's a detail in the instructions somewhere. Yeah, so there's a washer. It's a circle in there. So I'm going to start with the bolt. And to do that, I'm going to go to this icon here to get to my shapes. and I'm going to go to my polygon down here, and the shape of this bolt has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. We can see down in this right hand corner mine already says 6, so I'm going to assume that's the default. It's possible I changed it at some point. I don't recall doing that, but if yours doesn't say 6, just type it in to get a six-sided shape and put it in here. I'm going to click, and it's asking me for a radius. Now the instruction says 3/4 inch diameter, right? So I need half of that to be my radius, which is 3/8. So I'm going to type in 3/8, enter, to draw this little hexagon bolt here. And I'm just going to pull this up. Now it doesn't really give a height of bolts. I'm no expert on bolt height, so just pull it up just a little bit, what you think might look good, you know, a little height like that, and then again, triple click to select it all, right click and make group, and then I'm going to do the washer by using the same sort of tools. I'm going to click this black arrow here to get the circle tool, and there should be, let's see if there is, yeah, I can almost get the center point. It's not sticking here on the center point. There we go. I'm going to hold shift to just lock it into that face, and then I can get the center of that group. And I know I'm drawing high right now, but that's okay. I'm going to just draw the washer out. There's no size for the washer, so I'll just visually make it look something that looks pretty good, about that height. I'm going to pull this guy just down just a little bit to make it, you know, look like a washer height. And triple click on this washer, make group, and then I'm going to move it down. So I'm going to select on this bottom line here. I'm going to go to the move tool, which is right here. I'm going to select anywhere along this bottom line, and I'm going to move down. Now, you want to make sure that you move it down, so I need to see the blue axis. And now I can see I've got it right here, but if you're having problems finding the blue axis, there's ways that you can get to it. Either change your view, because if I'm like this, I can't move it down. Sketchup just doesn't have the view to be able to see what is up and down in this view. So it'd be very difficult. Another way of doing it is to sort of move it up. If moving it up is easier, and I get the blue line and I can hold shift and I've locked it into the blue. Alternatively, I can get to a blue by pushing up on my arrow key on my keyboard or down on my arrow key on my keyboard, and it will lock into that blue dimension, and I'll make sure I got it perfectly straight down. And the other thing I just want to mention really quickly, you'll notice, don't do this. I'm going to move my washer over. Notice my washer does not have a hole in it. A real washer has a hole in it, right? That's how the bolt fits through it. My washer does not. When you're modeling, only model what you really see, what you really need to see. Since the bolt is always going to sit in my washer, at least in this drawing, that's all. I don't need to worry about it. The hole in the washer is hidden. Why draw it? Doesn't need to be done. So I just undid too many steps there. I meant to just undo back to moving this vertically. So let me get that back down to where it belongs. All right, there we go. So keep in mind, only model what you really need to as well. That's an important lesson. All right, so there is my washer with lots of words to go along with it. All right, let me see. Where did my drawing go on my desk? Here we go. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is we can start with the joists. The joists are 5. I just want to make sure I get the right size, and they're 2x10s. So is the 2x10. So this front one's going to be a 2x10 as well. So I'll start there. So a 10 is really 9.1/4 inches. 9.25. It's going to come over 1.5. Making sure I see the red axis line, and I want to make sure I see the blue one to go down and come across. I'm going to pull this guy all the way through to the back. I'm going to pull this back a little bit past the washer, and I'm going to triple click and make this a group. And then I'm going to make another one of these at the back. Right, it looks like in the model it's right pretty much at the back wall. So I'm going to go all the way up. I don't need to put in the number because I know it's the same height. I'm going to go over 1.5 in that direction. And I'm going to come straight down and come over. You hardly notice that there is a face there, but when I go to my push-pull button and I scroll over this face, it can come out. And notice, this is really important that I made this a group, because if I didn't make this a group, I wouldn't be making a new object that I could then copy over into the rest of the joist. I would be affecting this original one. But I'm not, because it's a group. So I'm just going to pull it out just a little bit. Again, just visually do it. There's no sort of dimensions on what basically looks right, somewhere around there. Now I want this to be a group. Triple click, make group, and I want to copy this 16 inches on center. So there's no copy command in SketchUp. What it is, it's all under the move command. So I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna press the control button, CTRL on the keyboard, and we see I've got a little plus sign on my move. That means it turned into a copy. But otherwise it works a lot like Move in AutoCAD. I'm gonna start by selecting a base point. I'm gonna move it over. I'm gonna type in 16. And I could keep doing that to make more of these, but I can do a shortcut too. I can see I really want 1, 2, 3, 4 copies, so I have 5 joists in total. So I'm going to type in the number 4, I'm going to type in the number X and hit enter, and just auto-populate those joists all the way in. It's sort of a quick way of doing array, which is really useful. Otherwise, you could just you could just do the same move command 4 times, moving at 16 inches. That would be another way of doing it, but that's sort of a quick, fun way of using SketchUp there. And of course, on top of this, we're going to have a subfloor. So let's see what our subfloor is. Note 6 is 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood subflooring. So in this case, I'm going to start with the pencil tool. I'm going to start on the back corner. If I can get that snap point just right, I might have to zoom in a little bit to get it. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to come down the front face, and it looks like it goes to just shy of that, the second to last one. So about here, which in my case is about midway through that element, is going to come out, just visually. There's no dimension, but mostly through the length of the joist. And it comes straight back, making sure I see this green line, because that means I'm drawing straight, and come over to draw the face. And I'm going to then just pull this guy up 3/4 of an inch, or 0.75. And I got that guy, so I'm going to triple click on him and make group, and to make him a group. And then I'm going to do my stud wall next. Let's just make sure. I want to make sure again. Note 10 tells me what size that is. 10 is 2x6s, which I figured it would be, but just wanted to make sure. So I'm going to start with the plate. Oop, not erase. I don't want to erase. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to do basically the same thing. It's 2x6, so it's 5.5 inches. Up 1.5 over 5.5, seeing the red line, and down. And I'm going to push-pull this all the way back to the end, and then push-pull this back just a few inches or whatever it is to sort of get that three-dimensional look. Select, triple-click, right-click, make group. And then I will come back to my pencil tool, draw another 2x6 just in the opposite direction. So I know that's already 5.5. I don't need to put in any numbers. I just visually do it. Go over 1.5 inches and come here and all the way around. Again, I don't see a new face in here, but when I go to push-pull tool, I get the blue dots, which means I can push-pull it up and just do it again, a height of what looks good for your drawing. So I'm just going to zoom out all the way by pulling back on my scroll wheel and pull up. And by the way, if I just push on my scroll wheel, in case you didn't notice, that's rotate around, revolve. If I hold shift and push, it's pan on my scroll wheel. Pushing and holding on my scroll wheel down, and holding shift, that's pan. And then to zoom in and out is push forward and backward. So similar to AutoCAD, but not identical. Anyway, I got that stud done. I'm triple clicking, I'm right clicking, I'm making group, and I'm going to copy this. Actually, I should move. I'm going to move this first, so I'm not going to press control from that snap point all the way to the back, because that's what our drawing shows. And then I'm going to copy, so I'm going to hit control to get the little plus sign and go 16, enter, and that'll be 2x to make another copy of it. Okay. So we'll do that. I'm going to do the inside of the wall first, because the first drawing in the set looks at the inside, so we'll have to flip to the other page to see what's going on the outside. But note number 9 is the drywall, I assume, and it's 1/2 inch drywall. So I'm going to draw again, because there's no dimensions given, so I'm just going to use my pencil tool, click on the corner, sort of come up about halfway, 3/4 of the way through that stud, and then I'm going to come over, see the green line, and come to about midway between those two studs, then come all the way down. Actually, what I should have done, I'm going to undo that, I'm sorry. I'm going to undo that line. Because what I should probably do first is the flooring itself. So the flooring is note 7. So note 7 is 1 inch thick finished hardwood flooring. So let me draw what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in this back corner. I'm going to come out to about halfway in between these two studs. I'm going to come over. There's no sort of width on this. Let me check. Where was it? 1 inch thick. Yeah. So I'm going to come over. Maybe I'll come over like 4 inches. Let's say it's 4-inch wide plank. Doesn't say. You can get different plank sizes. I'm going to come over, draw the rectangle, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to pull it up 1 inch to make it 1 inch high, as said. I'm going to triple click and make this a group. And then I'm going to copy this over. So I'm going to go to my Move tool, have it selected. I'm going to hit Control to get the plus sign. And I'm going to select it here. I'm going to hit that face, and we need 3 copies, so I'll do 3x. Make the floor. Okay, planks just like that. Now I'm going to do the drywall, because I can sit this on top of the floor. So I want to snap from that corner. I'm going to go up approximately 3/4. In the drawing, this drywall is back shy of the wood a little bit, so I'm just going to sort of visually, again, do it, making sure I had that green line. I'm going to come down all the way down to the top of the floor, not the top of the stud, top of the floor, and come over here, close the object, and I'm going to pull this guy out this way a 1/2 inch for the drywall. Whoops! I triple click. I click to get the group, and to enter a group, if I need to edit, it sort of entered the group. I see the black dots. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to triple click on the drywall and right click and make that a group. And then note 8 is looks like some sort of trim work, 4-inch wood trim. So I'm going to come out. I'm going to come up 4 inches, and it's going to visually come across shy of the surface a little bit. I'm going to come down and across. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to say this trim is 3/4 inches wide, so I'll do 0.75 to show that trim there. And that's basically the first bit of drawing other than the notes is all right there. I'm going to flip this guy around, and if you flip the page in your directions, which if I scroll down, so I basically was drawing that view, but if you flip the note in this directions, you see there's a few bits of material on this side we'll want to add. So back to Sketchup, and back to my notes here. The first thing is note 11, and that's a 1/2 inch plywood wood sheathing. So I will start basically at this line right here, which is the bottom of that plate. Alright, start here. I'm going to go up just visually looks like about the same height as what this drywall is. So I can just pan to my view around to get about the same height. And I'm going to come over, and it probably goes to about the same width over, making sure that I've got the green direction selected. And then I'll come straight down and over. And that was a 1/2 inch, I believe, if I recall. So I'll pull it, move my cursor out and do 0.5. Triple click, make group. The next thing I have is note 12, which is 30-pound building paper, which, of course, but really has no discernible thickness. And I have to say, you never, other than this detail, which sort of looks cool, if you're really modeling a house, you would never model all this material. You would just, you would just do the outside face and the inside face to look right. But this is a good way to practice modeling. So I'm just going to draw up, and I'm going to draw over a little bit, and I'm going to draw down, straight down, see the blue line, and over, and I'll just pull this out just so I get a little bit, I don't know, 0.1 we'll say, for thickness for that guy. Just give it a tiny bit of thickness. Triple click, right click, make group. And then we've got 5-inch shingles, looks like 13 wood beveled shingles with 5-inch exposure. So they're going to obviously have to be taller than that. But again, we don't need to draw what's sort of hidden, so we only need to really draw the 5-inch segment. And so to do that, I'm going to click here. I'm going to come out like, I'll say I'll come out an inch. We'll see how that looks. I'll come up 5 inches. and I'll come back all the way to my inch. So basically I'm just going to draw that rectangle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my move tool with nothing selected. I'm going to select on that bottom, that corner there, and I'm just going to move it in along the red direction to sort of get the angle of the siding, and it'll get the shape of the siding. And then I can push pull this guy all the way to the back so it aligns and get my siding size. And then I will triple click, right click, and say make group, and I will copy this guy up from this bottom point to sit right on top of there. And there's 3 copies, so there's 3x, and I'll go up the side of the wall just like that. Right, and so that's all the modeling right there. What we want to do now is do notes. I think for this video I'm going to start to just show you how to do the notes. I don't necessarily need to do them all because I want to show you one extra thing, I think, just for fun on here. Well, actually a couple extra things on here, but I'm going to go back to this view just since it's the first one in the instructions. And it's all noted there, like note 1, you'll just put in the text over on it in the instructions that say note 1. So note 1 says, find that page here, 12 inch by 24 inch concrete footing, right? So you're going to go to this leader arrow right here, and I'm going to click on it. And I'm just going to click on this object here, and I'm going to pull out, not unlike AutoCAD. I'm going to pull over, and it's going to do it, drop it here, and I can just type in the note, 12 inches by 24 inches concrete. Make sure to be cap locks on. And when I'm done, I will just go click my black arrow. And you notice there goes the note. It's sort of perfectly located. What you notice in SketchUp, though, is that no matter where I zoom in, the note sort of always looks the same size, and no matter where I pan, it sort of always pans around. Now what I should have done is I should have changed to my text layer so I could control this. And I can still do that. What I want to do is I'm going to select on this leader, and I want to go to Entity Info in my default tray. If you don't see Entity Info over here, go to Window, Default Tray, Entity Info, make sure it's checked. And I'm going to go to Text 1. And what I'm going to do now is I want to put all the rest of these notes on Text 1. So I'm going to go change my layer to Text 1 just by hitting this toggle button right here. I should have done that first, but I didn't. Anyway, I'll go to Note 2, hit the leader, hit a spot on here somewhere. I don't necessarily want to snap to the black. I want to snap to the field, so you just want to make sure that you get your snaps in the right spot. I'm going to click somewhere here out in the field. I'm going to say 10 inch thick concrete foundation wall. Go with my black arrow to unclick here. Now I don't quite like where that looks, so I'm going to move it up a little bit just so it gets out of the footing itself. Like that. Move up. There we go. And I can move it over if I want to try to get better alignment. The realize in SketchUp it is tough to sort of align your text, and they always sort of shift as you pan around. Like as soon as I just pan a little bit, completely changes the orientation of my text. One reason why many people don't do text in here. So just get it approximately looking good. Excuse me for a second. And so you can go, I'll do one more piece of text here. Note 3 is the anchor bolt. So I'm going to hit the anchor. Oh, sorry, the annotation, click, and type in a note 3/4 inch diameter steel anchor bolts and washer. And you can go and do that for all the rest of the notes that are on here. Not all the notes are on the one drawing. But there are a few there. And then to do dimensions, I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Dimension, and I'm just going to click on one corner. I'm going to click on the other corner and pull it out. Actually, I probably should change some settings to change that, but again, I don't particularly care because it's not really how people use SketchUp to do dimensioning. So I would go to Tools, Dimension, and I'm going to click on that line, and I can pull it out that way, and I can do it again, Tools, Dimension, Guess I'm still on it. Yeah. Cool. Click here, and pull it out. And get the dimension. So you can go and note all of that. Notice I'm doing all this on text 1. The reason for that is because what I can do now is as I go and I want to flip around to the other side, we see all these dimensions are still on there, but in the instructions we're only supposed to add a few notes and a few dimensions over for this back side that we don't see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle the text 2, and I'm going to uncheck the text 1 box, and they disappear, right? So now I can go and I can do these notes here. So 11, I can click out here. Note 11 is 1/2 inch. What is it? CDX, plywood, wall, sheathing. And I can hit enter if I want to like snap back here and say enter to sort of make the text 2 lines. I can do that. And you can go and add the rest of the notes there, and you can also go back to Tools, Dimension, and oops, missed my dimension to 5 inches, and pull this out in the green axis to get that and put all your notes there. And now I can go back to layer 1, and what I can do is I can toggle off those notes, and I can toggle on these notes to get the different views. And you could just go ahead and print these, but you know, you want to. The way Sketchup works, it doesn't work off of layouts. Well, it can, but we're not doing it that way. And it doesn't work off of like a window, which is another way to print in AutoCAD. It works pretty much just off your screen. So when you go to make a print, say the first view you want to do, this one, you want to make sure it fills up most of the screen. If you print this, which it might also fit, it's going to come out with a lot of white space. That's just how Sketchup works. So you want to push in and take up most of the view and get the right view in here. And when you get it set, you're just going to go to File. You're going to print, and you can set it to the printer. Of course, I'm not going to do that. But the other thing you can do to sort of save this view is you can go to your scenes. And I have my scenes up here. It's right here. But you could go to Windows, Default Tray, and Scenes and pull it up if you need to. And I'm going to hit this little plus sign. And a couple things happen. One is I get this little guy here, and I get this little box here. And I'll show you what that does for me here in a second. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the second view, which is sort of this back view, is how it's laid out in the instructions. And we want to uncheck the notes for text 1 and check the notes for text 2 when they come in, just like this. And I'm going to hit the plus sign again, and I just say this view. All right, because now watch what I can do is I can go to note 1, scene 1, it takes me back to that view, and it changes my layers back to the settings I had. And then I can go back to scene 2 whenever I want, and it takes off those notes and changes this back to the layers that I have set on here. And the instructions say to actually have 2 other scenes, 2 other views without any notes. So I'm going to uncheck the text. I'm going to do some other view that might look interesting. Maybe this view like this looks sort of interesting. So I'm going to hit the scene again and have a scene 3, and maybe I'll show one from this angle, and maybe this angle like right back here. Whatever angle you think look interesting, I'm going to hit scene 4. And so I can always just jump back and forth. These 2 have no notes as they're supposed to. This one has a certain set of notes, and this one has another set of notes. Of course, you put in the notes fully. I haven't done all the notes in the directions, but you do them. You print them out, and that's the assignment. But before I end this, because you know I'm only not even 40 minutes into this, which is actually a short video for this class. Before I do this, I just want to show you one other thing. Text isn't, 100% important for SketchUp, but what is really fun to do in SketchUp is to add materials to your object, and it's really easy to do. Just at least the basics is really easy to do. So I'm going to go to Materials box over here and pull it down. If you don't see Materials, you can go to Windows, Default Tray, Materials, all right? And under here, I have these sort of pull downs. I've got lots of different options in here. So for this one, this is concrete. So I'm going to go to my asphalt and concrete, and we can see it has predefined materials here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click inside a group. I'm going to this one's all concrete, so I'm going to triple click on it. I'm going to pick one of these concrete images here. I say, I don't know, you can read the descriptions. That's blacktop, blacktop, asphalt, concrete. Formwork, polished concrete. I might just go with the polished concrete. And when we get this little paint bucket, I'm going to click on that object. And no longer is this object white. Now, concrete's a light color gray, but when I zoom in, you can see it sort of looks like concrete now. And I can do the same thing here. So I'm going to double click and then triple click to enter the group and select all of that. Click on this guy and click on here to give him material. Actually, I might even do formwork. I could do This one I could make the formwork, although it's not exactly like how a basement wall might look, but you sort of get where pieces of wood were tied in and various other aspects like that, where the joints between panels would be, and things like that. So it starts to look like concrete. And then for these guys, which is the lumber, you might select, and let's see what they have under wood. I can scroll down to wood, and I want something that's just more grainy. So the wood veneer might work. It might look a little too veneery, but we can give it a try. We can apply that wood veneer to it. You can see it now looks like wood. Not exactly like how wood would look in lumber, because really these materials are finishes. Typically use SketchUp do finishes. What does the outside surface look like? But I can triple click and then double click the hex bolt, go to metals, and just, this is pretty much going to be a gray. I mean, I don't know if they have steel in here. Metal steel textured. Yeah, I'm just going to go with this brushed stainless steel, which isn't exactly right, but will look close enough. Do the same for the bolt. Give it this sort of look like that. It has a little bit of a shine to it, like it's metal. Of course, all of this is back under wood. Oops. Select the whole object, I could have set this up a different way, and I didn't, to make sure I could either, I can delete all of these guys if I want to, and just select this again and copy it over 16 inches and do my copy again just to redo it, or I could just set them all to have the material. So I can do this for all my wood. We'll just try to do this fairly quickly here. Boom. I'm going to use this wood for all my lumber. I'm going to change it. Obviously, it looks a little dark for lumber. I'm going to show you a quick change to that. Most lumber doesn't quite look this dark. So that's going to be that. And my plywood essentially is going to have a fairly similar look. So I'll just do my plywood in the same color. And my flooring, although it's wood, I'm going to choose a different material. I'm going to choose, some of these do look like flooring. It could be, it could do wood bearing. I mean, any of these could really be. I'm going to see if I do this, it's going to be very variegated. It's going to look sort of a lot like flooring. It's in the wrong direction though, which I can fix. And I might, but you'll notice it actually sort of has the components already as sort of individual boards, which is sort of nice. So if you want to show sort of advanced tricks, what I'd really do is I'm going to select this face. I'm going to right click and say texture, and I'm going to go to position, and I can see these boards. That's part of this pattern here, and I can rotate the boards to be in that direction. And I can make them about the same width as my piece, which is 4 inches. And when I go back to black arrow, there we can see, actually didn't quite rotate it complete. It's hard to do. I need to do this a little bit again. I'm going to select that face. I'm going to right click. So I'm going to right click on here and do, where did it go? Okay, so just select the face, right click. Right click, texture, position. See, it's hard because it's so zoomed out to get this rotated perfectly 90 degrees, like that, and then I can scale it as well to sort of fit better, and I can move it sort of into position and get like it so it's like two boards then being joined right in that location. And then what I can do is I can sort of absorb all of this by hitting this paint bucket, hitting Alt on this guy, and then as I double click all of these other ones, I'll paint them on, and you can see it sort of paints this on all of this way. Again, it's not really intended to be used. It's intended to be used if you aren't individualizing the boards, which you would really never do in a SketchUp model. You wouldn't make each boards individual. You just make the floor one piece, and you let the material look like the different flooring material, so it looks like floor like that. Now we go to this trim. Actually, I didn't make it a group, so if I triple click, I can right click and say make group. Now, a lot of times trim is white, so I might just leave it white like that, and I can come out to this side. I can make my building paper. I'll leave my building paper just generic white like that, I think. And then I have my siding, which the siding might be vinyl, it might be wood, doesn't really matter. The reality is it's going to probably be some color of some sort, and that's sort of the important feature. So I'm going to triple click on here. I'm going to go to color, colors, which is here, and pick a color. You can pick any color you want for this. So I'm going to say I have a nice light green house. I'll go with a very light green there. Painted that color. It's a little limey, a little bit of lime in that color, but you know, we're not going to talk about aesthetics here. So I can do the same color for all of these guys, and I can show you how I can change this a little bit as well, because what I want to do now, that I sort of put all the materials I want on pretty much all of these, and it sort of has this cool look here, but I can do subtle tweaks to this material. So I'm going to go to my home button. These are all materials I've used in my drawing. The reality is a lot of these materials are from that woman who we just deleted when we first started this file. So I'm going to go, but I'm going to go to say to my, not my wood floor, but my wood veneer one that I did. I'm going to go to the Edit tab. I'm going to change this to HSB. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lighten the color up a lot. And I might saturate it a bit more, which is down this way. I'm going to take it more towards the color yellow. And so it looks more like lumber color. Right, that looks a lot. It has a little bit of that texture of wood, maybe not quite right, but it certainly looks a bit more lumbered color. That allows this flooring to sort of stand out somewhat. And then I'm going to go back to select. I'm going to find that sort of lime green I used for the siding. I'm going to do the same. Select this. I'm going to go to Edit, and you know, I want this to be even more saturated to turn it down. That way. And I'm going to turn this, I'm going to also make it go a little bit more towards yellow from pure green, and you know, just to give it a little bit of tint, like a color like that. Now again, make it any color you want. This houses can be any color, but just to add a little bit of texture. And so it sort of looks cool like that because I've added all those textures to it, and that'll stay in any of the scenes. Last thing I just really like, I like drawings that have shadows. I'm just going to minimize these guys here. We'll see that there's a shadows toolbox over here. Again, if you don't have it, that's Windows, Default Tray, Shadows. And all I have to do is I just hit this button and it automatically turns on shadows. And that gives it even more of a three-dimensional pop. And when you're doing architectural drawings, specifically architectural rendering, shadows make a huge, huge difference. And I can change lots of details about those shadows. If I don't quite like the angle, I can pull it towards the back of my drawing, and I have sort of control. And the control is based off the sun. That's why it says time of day and date, because it's basically picking where the sun would be at that time of day. It's very accurate. And you can set locations if you want to, which for a drawing like this doesn't necessarily need to be. And then you can tone down your shadows or tone up your shadows by playing with these sort of buttons to sort of get the graphic quality that you want. Well, that's sort of fun too. And there's lots of other fun things that you can do with SketchUp, but those are some basics. So I think I'll end the video there. Again, you'll have your 4 scenes printed out for the assignment, and I'll see you in class. Thanks for watching.